Sue has one of the best mullets I've ever seen. And also, before we get started, I want to remind everyone, if you're new here or whether you've been around for a while, I am writing my debut novel. I am now working on the 3rd version of my first manuscript, and then you can get more information on that. It's called The Crimson Gods, and this will be a fantasy, kind of a dark fantasy debut novel. And I'm really, really excited about it. You can get more information. There will be a link in the description below. It is just a sign-up page on an Indiegogo page. I will eventually open an Indiegogo campaign for that to help, raise some funds to get this thing going. It will come out in audiobook, hardcover, softcover, and digital as well, ebook. So I wanted to make sure I let you guys know about that. And you can also find out all that if you decide to join our Patreon page. So feel free to join that as well if you want to support the channel. All the same information that will be released on the Indiegogo campaign when pre-orders are available and all that type of thing will also be available on the Patreon page. And of course, if you decide to join our Patreon page to support the channel or the book in particular, there will be a lot of free goodies, including a lot of free books as far as signed hardcovers and softcovers, ebooks, and all that good stuff as well. So anyway, all those links will be in the description below. But anyway, let's jump right in. Raised by Wolves, they continue to mystify a little bit, but they are giving us enough now to kind of start, okay, making sense of some of these visuals, some of these metaphorical visuals. Ragnar has essentially become Otho, who of course is the helmeted guy who is the father of Tempest's child because of the bad things he did on the way to the planet, because he once heard the voices as well, and then they left him. So essentially, he has fallen from grace, because this has got a lot of religious symbolism, obviously, and now Ragnar has become Otho in the sense that he no longer hears the voices, so he feels like he is no longer loved by his god. We see that old father or old pops now is not just itchy trigger finger, whatever. It was actually Morse code. And the Morse code ended up spelling out soul is the light, which was essentially a password. Now, what I didn't understand is that he could have kind of gone into rebuild mode earlier and just typed in this password whenever he figured it out. But it's like all of a sudden that he got the password and figured out that it was Morse code saying soul is the light. Then he realized he can go into his hand and swipe a few things and go into restore mode like fucking Windows 10. But anyway, the question is, is that some underlying programming? These androids were initially created by the religionists because they stole the technology out of their own scriptures. It was kind of encrypted in there. So they don't really understand how this technology works, essentially, but they understand enough to know how to use it, essentially. So they're the ones who created the droids in the first place, and it makes you wonder who that creator was. Or again, was it OG Campion who reprogrammed Mother and Father from their other roles to go on this mission in the first place? We see Mother as she escaped last episode, and she heads towards the ship this time to find parts, or now basically android blood, the white fucking milk that we see all the time, like in the Alien franchise, of course. She starts acting really, really fucking crazy again, acting like a wolf, which again, the show is Raised by Wolves. We've seen this before when we saw Tally fall down the hole, apparently, and she held her doll up and howled like a wolf, but this time she's sniffing around and she starts chewing on shit. And what it is she realizes that she needs actual blood because, of course, of this baby inside of her that she thinks is a fucking tumor, because Carl, the weirdest looking android I've ever seen in any franchise whatsoever, but as she scans it with her eye, she realizes it's a half carbon life form. So this is going to be some hybrid thing here, and we'll talk a little bit more about that because I think that's kind of the direction they're going with this whole fucking thing. Poor Carl gave up all of his white milk blood for Mother to feed her baby, essentially. So poor Carl lasted exactly what, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes total screen time in this entire fucking show. And speaking of the half-human hybrid thing, whatever is growing inside Mother now that essentially she's pregnant, I do think that was something that was always there, because when she took out her eye to kind of examine and see what the hell it was, it looked to be in a spherical form, so it wasn't like an actual human embryo in that sense. So I do think it was always there, but I think it was actually activated when she went into that simulator and had the weird floating space sex with her creator in the actual simulators. And of course, this has now been revealed to us as this being the plan all along. What she's carrying inside her is the future of the human race. And of course, only being half human or half carbon based, we can only assume that the other half is android. So I believe that's kind of the idea. Unite humanity is half human, half android things. And this brings us back to the so-called host we saw a few episodes ago. And I think this guy, whoever he may be, has something to do with this. And I think he actually may be kind of where they're heading as far as this new child or this new thing that Mother is pregnant with. And we follow this up with Tempest as she followed Mother out to the ship. She comes across her. She's excited to see her. They're excited to see each other, but then she has to kind of run her off because she had realized at this point, after killing the creature, which again, the creatures may be some kind of devolved form of humans that got there earlier, but she runs her off because she now craves human blood. So Mother is essentially a fucking vampire now because she realizes that the plasma in human blood actually helps sustain her child, and now she's actually showing a baby bump. So this thing's happening pretty damn quickly. So this is not going to be too long before she gives birth, and I'm assuming we'll get that answer in episode 10. We had all the fallout between Ragnar and his wife Sue. You know, again, she has the best looking mullet. I really never paid attention to it. Obviously, I've seen her in all the episodes, but I never really thought about her mullet, but I just saw a screenshot, and she's got that one side shaved, and it's just a great fucking mullet. I'm sorry. I mean, just go ahead and rock it, Sue. Rock that fucking mullet. But anyway, she gets kind of thrown into the silo because, you know, she has now realized that, you know, Ragnar's gone full believer. He's kind of cray-cray. And he basically told her all this, that he's hearing the voices, kind of admitted all this to her now. This is obviously driving a huge rift between them. So she's able to escape with her son Paul and the rest of the kids, when Campion, helped by Paul, is actually able to dig himself out of the silo, and he lights the fucking church on fire, and Ragnar thinks that's the answer that he was seeking from Sol, the god he supposedly worships now. Please give me a sign that I'm not crazy. He walks away, and it was Campion the whole time who lit the motherfucker on fire. So basically they could create this diversion and escape. So the burning of the church really only reinforced his batshittery. And back to Mother really quickly, you know, the whole thing this last couple episodes has really kind of been about the Immaculate Conception, really imagery based off Christianity, obviously. She doesn't understand how she's pregnant, how it's possible, how an android is carrying a half-human life form. They keep saying half-carbon, but obviously that is half-human. So the question goes back to who the hell is doing all this, and is it OG Campion in his form as the host, like he had came to this planet a long time before them, or in some other form? Maybe his AI was loaded up into an android, the one that stole the original cards. Thought that was interesting as well. We saw the cards come back into play. They were placed there by the host. So this person who is watching all this happen, who seems to be in control of all this on this planet, placed these cards out there purposely to be seen and found. So obviously that's going to be something we see in episode 10. And by the way, speaking of these little metal cards that Mother finally scanned and had another vision, and we'll talk about that in just a second, Otho mentioned really quickly when she was basically stealing his blood the whole entire time they were walking, was that he had seen these cards before on Earth, and they were part of this devil cult before they exterminated them. But I thought it was really, really cool how Mother scanned one of the cards. She goes into another, essentially a vision, almost like she plugged into the holodeck, and she sees this weird fucking creature in the middle of all these people in robes. And I think that was to remind us that Tally wears one of these robes too. You know, and Tally supposedly fell in this fucking mysterious snake hole, and she's still sitting there basically honing Campion, which I'm kind of glad the last couple episodes we didn't see a lot of Campion. You know, this kid's getting on my fucking nerves, and we didn't see a lot of him in the last couple episodes, so I thought that was actually made the whole fucking show better. But we see this weird creature basically in this polyhedron, kind of like the big one we saw made out of stone that we'll go back to in a second as well. Obviously, this is kind of what it represents here. And of course, it was spitting out like android blood, so some weird alien thing. But the question is, was that being worshipped as like it was coming out from its egg, or was it being imprisoned in this thing? So that begs the question about the big polyhedron that they keep going back to. They go back to it. He wants to hear the voice of Sol again as well. I think we have a third faction going on here is what I'm saying, a third faction of intelligence, and it's not a god called Sol. We see that Sue, the wife, is now helping Mother, so now they're kind of on the same side, and they kind of bond over their individual children. And the idea, of course, is they both have children, but they're not really their biological children, but they still care for them and love them anyway, and that's kind of the point. We see Tempest take out Otho with a fucking outstanding fatality as far as the helmet crush. I mean, that was outstanding. The rule is how he's imprisoned in the damn thing in the first place is if he gets further away from that droid than 10 feet, his fucking head explodes, and that's exactly what happened. But interestingly enough, he got superpowers, essentially, because Father said so in the scan on the ship, and he said that the power was almost that of Mother's. He figured out some kind of reverse thing where he started getting the blood from her when they were connected together via the tube, and became a super powerful motherfucker. So I think that kind of hints at what the hell she's carrying inside of her and what it's going to be. And I think that may be the end game here, is she's going to be the key to open the big one that they keep going back to, that's got the, you know, devil's butthole on the side of it or whatever. and that keeps, lighting people on fire or keeping them warm or whatever. That's going to be the key there when that thing opens, and I think Mother is the key to opening that. And the question is something trapped inside? Is something being imprisoned in there and controlling it? Or is it something being born? So that's the interesting question, and I think it all ties back to this host guy who knows what the hell is going on, and maybe who's producing these voices in people's heads anyway, because Paul also hears a voice, and it's basically to take these cards, these cool metal cards that I wanted to see her scan all of to get some more answers, and he throws them in a small fire. Now, I don't know if that's going to be able to damage those or whatever, but it seems to be, so I don't think we're going to get those clear-cut answers where she can go back and scan the rest of those to let us know what the hell is going on. And finally, Ragnar gets found out. They find out that what she said back in a few episodes back, Mother did, that he is, basically an imposter. They find out it's true because he says to him, "Did you pray for my father?" And he said, "Of course." And of course, that was against the rules. You don't pray for somebody's soul if they're impure. And he realizes he is an imposter, a false prophet, so to speak, and commences to whipping that ass. But what's really interesting is he takes the eye, one of the eyes out of the little satchel around his neck that was Mother's, and puts it in his mouth and seems to crush it or whatever, and that's what's running out of his mouth when he's damn near death laying in the dirt at the end of the episode. And one more thing I had to mention really quickly I thought was really interesting. They go to the ship and they find this tooth relic, and I didn't think much of it at first, but I went and looked it up just to make sure I was right to kind of confirm. And I believe this is supposed to be one of the teeth of Romulus. But basically, Romulus and his twin brother Remus were raised by a mother wolf, raised by wolves, and Romulus ended up killing his brother Nemus and founded the city of Rome. So the question is, which two characters in our story are kind of like brothers? Who's going to kill who? And I think that really comes down between Campion and Paul. They seem to be the most likely candidates. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. As usual, thank you for all the support, especially you guys on Patreon. And a huge shout out to my executive Patreon SmokeScreen producers. And of course, if you dig what I do here, please give these videos a like, comment, and share. And be sure to subscribe to get everything. And click that notification bell so you're notified when I drop a new video. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.